We're going to have Robocop, the real guy. What? They'd made arrangements because the movie was going to be coming out. It was going to be a tie-in. The posters, that's another thing. If you go back into the ad, as a matter of fact, do I have an ad in here? Yeah. No? That's the Clash. Shit. I didn't reprint the ad in here, but it was like a movie poster. The Return of Robocop. It had a big picture of Robocop. You wouldn't have known it was a wrestling card. So maybe the Robocop fans would have fucking bought it. They said, we're going to have the real Robocop on, and we got to figure out something for him to do. And they said, but now here's the parameters. In the guy in the suit, and it might not have even been the real, maybe it's the real Robocop suit, because somebody said maybe it wasn't Peter Weller or whatever.
Peter Weller would have been the actor.
Well, I don't know who the fuck Peter Weller was, and fuck Peter Weller, anybody looks like Peter Weller, right? But it was the real Robocop suit, and they said the deal was he can't fall down, because if he falls down, he can't get back up. And he can't climb stairs in this suit, and he can't run. He moves. Basically, he can walk at a slow gait forward. So is what he can do.
So he's Abby at this point.
See, you. So we had to figure out something. Somehow he could be involved in a meaningful way, and they came up with the idea that there would be a cage at ringside because he could spread the fake bars. So that's why I ended up getting put in that fucking cage at ringside. So there would be a cage sitting there. There was a purpose for the cage sitting there. They fucked our match up.
You were there to get Robocop.
I was there to get Robocop over. And my thing was always I would fucking try to get out of the cage and everything. I said, no, don't touch the fucking bars, because the bars were gimmicked. Because he couldn't really pull fucking bars. So I couldn't touch the cage and do all this shit and everything. And so, already now the Midnight Express match is handicapped because I'm stationary. There's no good reason for me to be in this cage because Pillman and Zink had been beating us like fucking redheaded stepchildren and government mules for the previous 3 months. But now to keep me from interfering, I'm going to be in this cage that I can't fuck with. And just to make sure that it doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever, guess what the finish was? We won the U.S. Tag Team titles.
Yes,
we beat Pillman and Zink in the complete opposite of a fucking blow-off. They've been beating us for 3 months, and now the manager is neutralized, and the babyface is in an even fight.
Yeah.
I honestly think Ole felt sorry for us and just threw us a fucking bone, because that's the only explanation I've ever had for why that we beat them and won the belts when the one match they should have won, and they didn't.
The thing is that there's a DQ in a cage match.
Yeah.
This violates some kind of religious order in professional wrestling, does it not?
Here's the thing. Well, it didn't used to. Because in the 60s and 70s, when people were more forgiving and before they get smart, you could do things like that if you could either blame the heel for something bad or the babyface could take credit for something good, the fans were fine with it. This is 25 years ago. It's even worse now in that, how can I explain this? In the days of territory wrestling, if the babyface won the worst match that they'd ever seen, the people left happy. But if the heel won the greatest in-ring match of all time, they were pissed. So Ole had, even though things had gotten about halfway or not even to where they are now, Ole still thought that people would be happy if you could blame the heel for something bad or give the babyface credit for something good. It didn't matter, whatever the fucking DQ and blah, blah, blah. I've been accused of doing these things. I figure if it's a real good finish, you can get away with it, no matter what it is. If it's a bad finish, like that was, you can't get away with it, no matter what it is. That was a bad finish.
What's the outfit? What kind of getup is George in here?
Jorge
Yes.
Gonzales. He was a nice man. And it was not his fault. He was not cut out for this. I remember I was walking through CNN Center on the way to the office with Jim Ross. And he said, look, he said, there's our new giant. And I looked over, and there was a guy sitting in one of the seats at the lobby of the Omni Hotel. He was so tall, when he was sitting in a normal chair, his knees were up over his head. And he looked like $1 million, and he'd played basketball in Argentina, but he was not by any stretch of the imagination athletic enough to be a wrestler. He could have got by with it because of his size, but there was the language barrier. He had never seen wrestling before. He totally didn't get it. He was a nice man, but it was another investment they made that just did not pan out. He was legitimately 7'7", or close enough to where you didn't really want to argue with it. And he was, you know, he was great. He was a great guy. Just, oh God, it hurt the fans' feelings to just watch him walk. You can tell when a guy don't know what he's doing when he walks.
Dressed as a space-age samurai, too.
Yeah, well, it's because they had a fucking creative department that, you know, wow, this would be a nice-looking outfit. And this, now here, but they gained a giant, but guess who they lost? Then we go to Halloween Havoc.
You enjoy this finish?
No.
Why not?
It was inventive. Barry Windham cut his hair to where he looked like Sting, but people didn't fucking get it. It just did. People didn't understand it. It was too cute. They understood it on television because the people, it was explained by the announcers and the camera work and etc. But the people in the building were like, what the fuck? What? And so it just, if the announcers have to tell you that in that much detail what happened, I don't know. I didn't. Well, but already, you know, I'd already had my jaw dislocated that fucking night and was pissed off anyway. So maybe I was just in a bad mood.
Remember why Elvira wasn't used on the show, but she was in the promos?
Because they didn't want to pay her to come to Chicago. She just did shit in the studio. They would have had to pay her to come, if she would even indeed to lower herself to come to Chicago and participate in that. Okay, we get there, we're supposed to work with the rock and roll. So we're okay, at least, well, once again, we'll have a great match again, won't matter, but they put it on first. So we're jerking the curtain on the pay-per-view, and this was back before it was like, we're gonna start the show hot. It was just, this was the opening preliminary match. And that's when Robert hurt his knee. So it was Tommy Rich and Ricky Morton as a makeshift team. So Bobby Eaton, to get this fucking thing over, even does the rocket launcher onto the fucking wooden ramp. And boom, 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 we go 20 minutes with a makeshift team. It's never teamed before in their life, and no disrespect to either Ricky or Tommy. And then we put them over. And what some people said was one of the better matches on the show. Then try to juice this thing up, what we're supposed to do on the Clash with the Southern Boys. The Master Blasters are going to beat the Southern Boys, Blade and Steel. This time they got the new, along with Nash, who couldn't stick his thumb in his ass 3 tries, and this other fucking... And they're going to beat our opponents because I go out and cut. But these guys shouldn't even have been on television. I would have fired them. I'm not saying this because it's Kevin Nash. If they had been in OVW, I would have fired them because they were rotten. They were rotten for a wrestling school. They're on national TV. They're going to beat the Southern Boys. The Midnight Express just got beaten, and we're supposed to be going to the Clash for this big feature match. I go out in a Confederate general's uniform because it's Halloween Havoc and everybody's got to be dressed up. And in the finish meeting, Ole had suggested that after I caused the Southern Boys to lose, then they would take one of the jack-o'-lanterns
put it on your head
and hit me over the head with it, and I'd be running around with a pumpkin on my head.
Right.
And I said, Ole, I'm not putting a pumpkin on my head. I said, I said, we're losing. Then our opponents are losing, and the smidgen of heat that I might get for causing the babyface to lose, then they're going to fucking wear it off with the, and they're not going to put a pumpkin on my head. And Ole always hated Tennessee wrestling, right? So he's like, well, why? That's something Nick Goulas would have done. I said, well, the difference is Nick Goulas drew money, and he didn't like that.
Oh boy, did you say it?
Yes, I said that. So I said, they can beat me up, but they ain't putting a pumpkin on my head. So then Janie Engel comes up to me, the girl in the office, right? And I love Janie. And she said, Corny, whatever you do, don't tear the general's uniform because it's rented and we've got to take it back.
But that wasn't yours.
No, they
We
rented.
assume everyone in the South has one.
No, they rented it, and the pants were fucking like a size 2, and the fucking jacket was too big, and his fucking hat. I said, don't worry, Janie, I'll take care of it like it was my own baby, right? First thing I went to Tracy and Steve, I said, okay, rip the fucking jacket up the back off of me, and God, that thing was trashed, destroyed, whatever the fuck. Come back, oops, right? So they did that, and then in the midnight match, they had installed that ramp for the guys to come out because Vince used something like that.
Yes.
So they have to do everything Vince did.
Right.
So because of the ramp, when we go to do the spot where Ricky and Bobby are doing the crisscross, and then Ricky dives out and chases me, and I roll in, and Bobby's coming off, and I stand up, and he hits me with a tackle, and I take a big bump. Well, I can't go the right way I'm supposed to go because of the ramp, so I'm going the other way. Well, I'm going the other way. The floor cameraman gets in my fucking way. I have to go around him, so when I roll in, I'm late standing up, and I always tell Bobby, bring it, come full force, because we're going to hit shoulder to shoulder, and I'll just fly, right? It helped me. The harder he would hit me in the shoulder, the bigger bump I would take. I got delayed a second. As I'm standing up, he's coming, point of his shoulder in my chin, bam! Dislocates my fucking jaw, busts me open here, that little scar under there. So now they said no blood on pay-per-views, and now I'm bleeding down my fucking tie, and Stan's like, Corny, you got juice. I said, good, maybe they'll kick this fucking thing off the air. So the next day, after I go out with my in-laws that night and can't chew my dinner, the next day, guess where WCW, the second biggest wrestling promotion in the country, the fucking national TV attraction with all these major stars, guess where we run? Farmland, Indiana, where we put the Southern Boys over.
Big house?
Oh, sure, $11,000. That was almost 1,000 people. Then the next day we fly back to Charlotte. This is the beginning of the end, and then we'll finish out the year. We go back to Charlotte, and then we get in the car. We can't go home. We're only 10 miles from the house, and we haven't been fucking home, as you can see, in 4 or 5 days. So we can't go home because we got to rush to Anderson, South Carolina for TV, where we find out that a couple weeks ago we had 5 matches in one night. No matches. Stan's working a single match with Steve Armstrong. Bobby's not working. Nobody bothered to tell him. He could have stayed home with his family, but now he's in the car with us, so he can't come back. He's got to sit there all fucking, and this was before all the guys just had to go to TV. If you weren't booked, you didn't have to go to TV, right? So Bobby sits there like a spare prick at the wedding all night. Stan has one single match, which he loses, and then we drive on to Atlanta because we got center stage the next day.
We get that.